I'm Author Function,
I'm Galvin.
and this is the Secret Boss Podcast, where we talk about the best auteurs in gaming, whether they deserve that title or not. And today, we're talking about Hideki Kamiya, or at least we would, if we weren't blocked by him on Twitter. We're not actually on Twitter, but we've been blocked. He's very famous for blocking people. That's the bit I'm doing for this episode. It's not very good, but I did one. So, Hideki Kamiya, he is known for doing a lot of arcadey kind of styled games, but during the era of single player console games. He has a lot of games that are focused on gameplay first, a lot of games that are interested in scoring. They feel very video gamey, for lack of a better word, when a lot of other people are trying to be more cinematic.
Well, he is cinematic in a way, but we'll get to that.
He's less cinematic in the way that a lot of people would call cinematic. I mean, cinema is a very, very broad art form, but people think of more narrative-focused stories.
That is true. He's cinematic in the way that you could expect him like cheering at a movie where a plane rams into a gigantic building. Like that's what kind of cinema he likes.
I kind of want to call him a vulgar auteur. He's like Michael Bay or Tony Scott in a way.
Well, in that case, I guess a lot of video game auteurs are vulgar auteurs, but we'll see, yeah.
I think Kamiya is a lot more, though. I feel like he's a lot more focused on the sort of impression, the style, the sort of action. His characters are fairly shallow in the way they're depicted, but not like in a bad way. It's just more like he's completely uninterested in portraying character and more interested in just getting at those singular moments of action and interest and like having the highest sort of production at any given moment.
I agree with that. If I had to put it like in my words, I would say that if there's anything that's like a furrow line through the 4 games I played for this episode, it's that I guess Kamiya is the most interested in making sure the player has as much fun as possible, or is like trying to feel what the purpose of the game is for. Like if Resident Evil 2 is supposed to be scary, then it's supposed to be scary. If Viewtiful Joe is supposed to be exciting, it's supposed to be exciting. And everything else is just kind of like decoration for that, which is great. That's what some video games should be, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they're very emotion-focused games. He's very much like a sort of gamer game director. I think what's really interesting about him is that he's kind of like part of the first wave of people who came into the video game industry having already played a lot of video games. He grew up on arcade games on the NES and such, and he came into the gaming industry just probably like less than a decade after that era, after the NES, in like the mid-90s. He would join into Capcom using a very unique resume where instead of just having like the work that you've done written down in text or whatever, he actually drew his resume and sort of like had his own theory about how video games should look like, how they should play like, having his own designs and like look for his games. And He was actually brought into Capcom because of that portfolio. Shinji Mikami, whatever, he is the creator of Resident Evil, and he's the one who was first interested in Kamiya because of his like more visual focused portfolio, because Resident Evil was a very early 3D console game. It was supposed to be very cinematic, and he thought that Kamiya had that kind of cinematic eye for having shots that looked interesting and would be able to translate that information into a video game. So Kamiya's first project was working on Resident Evil. Mikami is a really interesting figure. I really want to get to him at some point after I did this research. I was like, wow, what an interesting guy. Because he was really interested in turning Capcom into a video game director-focused space, where instead of having the team all working together and sort of having their own input in developing the game, he wanted these games to have a singular vision. And that's what he did for the first Resident Evil, which Kamiya was not a big fan of. He really wanted to have his own input on the game, but Mikami sort of just made Resident Evil into what it was. Mikami sort of vetoed a lot of things. He made the game less action oriented. He wanted to have really slow horror. He wanted to have players not having enough bullets to kill all the enemies. And that kind of flew in the face of a lot of traditional game design. But Mikami was really interested in Kamiya's game design. He was like really opinionated. He was really interested in sort of making the game as best as possible. So when Mikami is sort of trying to transform Capcom into a more game director friendly space, and because Resident Evil was such a big success, he brought on Kamiya in order to have him be one of the next big game directors at Capcom. You really want to nurture new creators and give Kamiya the space to really have his own impact in the company. Now, do you know what happened next, Galvin? Do you know what Resident Evil 1.5 is?
I think it was Resident Evil Zero. Is it or no?
No. So Resident Evil 1.5 is what Capcom now calls the first cancel project of Resident Evil 2,
Oh,
because Kamiya kind of had a difficult time being a director at first. He wasn't a big fan of Mikami's theory that a video game should have a strong director, and he was kind of hands off. He wanted everyone to sort of contribute their own thing. But because this was a 3D game and it was much larger than games used to be, it ended up being kind of a disaster. The project got bloated. It didn't have a clear direction. The tone was off. The game wasn't very fun. And it soon became clear that Resident Evil 2 was going to be a disaster. It was a big problem for the company. And Mikami saw this. He saw what a bad job Kamiya was doing. And Kamiya also recognized the project was not going well. And in what is kind of a big change in that industry, something completely unheard of during that time, they completely reset the development. And what used to be called Resident Evil 2 is now called Resident Evil 1.5 because it was kind of like a development step for them. There's like a demo floating around of it. It's very similar to what Resident Evil 2 would eventually be, but I mean, it is similar in concept to Resident Evil 2 would actually come to be. But what's mainly interesting about it is that it ended up being a complete disaster. Kamiya did not do a good job on it, but Mikami actually gave Kamiya a second chance in, even though that he cost the company so much time and money and wasted all of it, he wanted Kamiya to be successful and he gave a second chance to the guy, which is really surprising in my opinion, considering what a big problem Resident Evil 1.5 was.
that is crazy.
They completely reset everything. They brought in a new writer from TV. I forgot his name, but he was like a big Japanese tokusatsu director, and brought him on to write the scenario for Resident Evil 2. And Mikami was like, "Okay, you gotta be really strict. You gotta be a director with a vision. You gotta do this right." And so Kamiya really like took that to heart. He tried to do things as best as possible, and it ended up being, in my opinion, really good. Resident Evil 2 is fantastic.
Yes. I was really surprised by this game. Well, okay. Right off the bat, you should know, listener, that I have not played any Resident Evil game. This is the very first Resident Evil game that I played, which is, I'm sure you probably wanted me to play the first one, but, things like this
No,
podcast get in the way.
I played the first one, so you wouldn't have to. I wanted to have the comparison, and I want you to come into this blind. So tell me about it. How'd it go?
Yes, Resident Evil 2 is a game about being miserable, basically. That's what's great about it. Survival horror is the genre that Resident Evil is known for pioneering, and a lot of the stuff that you talked about when it comes to Mikami's suggestion for the original Resident Evil, like not having enough bullets to shoot down all the enemies or not having enough items to scrounge around with, is what Resident Evil 2 is about. It follows Leon Kennedy, who does not look like the Leon Kennedy I know. He looks he looks terrible.
Yeah, I didn't know that he had like brown reddish hair in the second game, and everything else he has silver hair. I don't know what's going on there.
When he first showed up, I'm like, okay, so this is just like some generic guy. And like, even not being invested in the franchise at all, when he first said his name, I was like, no, you're not him. You're not. There's something wrong with you. Anyways, the story is very thin. It's interesting about what you say about them bringing in a tokusatsu writer into the beginning, because it's like the introduction is very much action packed. It's an opening cinematic that you watch, which is Leon Kennedy is a police officer brought into the Raccoon City, which is being overrun by basically zombies after a chemical outbreak from this place called Umbrella Pharmaceutical, I think. And basically, everybody is a zombie now, and the city is completely in shambles. There is some allusion to the previous Resident Evil game, which I think took place in a mansion with a guy named Chris Redfield. Well, this woman who is Chris Redfield's sister shows up, and they're like, "We should team up," and then they immediately get split up, and then the game drops you into a room with 5 zombies and doesn't teach you how to walk, and then you die, and you immediately restart the entire game over again. It's so good. This is not even a backhanded compliment. This game is so good at how it just immediately wallops you. Because it's like, I mean, you can just restart the game over again. There's no consequences, but it's like, it's so hard on you. That's what's great about it. Yeah, I really like this game. I mean, it's kind of how I imagined Resident Evil would feel like hearing about how I played, which is you have very few resources. You're running around not knowing what to do. If you don't know, the first few Resident Evil games were shot with fixed camera, so the camera doesn't follow you around omnisciently. It's third person, but whenever you walk past a certain boundary, it cuts to a different angle, like in a movie. And it's usually high up, like security camera kind of vantage point. There's also tank controls, which means that you walk forward, and when you press left, your character turns to their left, not your left, and right is their right, not your right. So it's basically you have to try and put yourself in the character's head while looking at them from a vantage point outside of that, which makes the controls very awkward on purpose, which I think fits with this game. I don't know how it fit with the first game, but it fits with this game because Leon Kennedy is a rookie police officer. This is literally his first day on the job. Also, I mean, the main thing are the zombies, which is, I mean, shooting is incredibly awkward. You have a handgun and like 30 bullets, which may sound like a lot, but every zombie takes like, I swear to God, like 10 shots to kill. And that's if you shoot them down first. If you walk up, there's this amazing thing this game does where frequently if you shoot down a zombie and you try to walk past them, sometimes they're alive and they grab your feet and injure you anyways.
That's great. I love those parts.
Amazing. Okay, sorry, I'm being very general, but overall, I have to say, what's really good about this game, I don't know if the first game did this, is that it's so focused on fucking with you, even if you feel like you have a control over the environment. There are a lot of scares that are directed towards you because you'll be exploring this space, trying to find items. There's a lot of puzzle-based environment stuff where you have to use items on other items, very much like an adventure game, but with a limited inventory. That's also a huge deal. But a lot of the game's best scares are about like when you think a moment is over and then the game assaults you with something that you didn't expect at all. There are several moments that are legitimately terrifying because the game will set up this expectation of things being over and like you walking back to a room you already fully explored. But because you walked into this room where you don't know when something new is happening, you have no idea what you're in for. It's
Yeah,
great.
it kind of takes the assumptions that a video game space is like static and then kind of breaks it right when you don't think it's going to happen again. Like, oh man,
Yeah.
something is suddenly popping out of this place that I thought was like a consistent video game environment, and I've already interacted with everything I could. But now there's new interactions happening. I really love the way that this game sort of did that. I wouldn't see that as much in Resident Evil 1. There was kind of a part of it, but not really. I think that Kamiya really does a good job expanding on that from the first game. I want to share my experience as someone that played the first game and then immediately played the second game after. Is I felt like this one was a lot less horror oriented. The first game's like very quiet and slow for the first like almost the entire game, but like the first half especially is like there are very few actual zombies that you interact with, but the ones that do are there are like a big threat. They're kind of I wouldn't say they're scary, but it's like everything that you see is zombie. It's going to be an ordeal. But Resident Evil 2 is like throwing you straight into the action. You're immediately fighting 4 different zombies at once. There's fire everywhere. The entire city is destroyed, and it feels like it's a lot more interested in like hyping you up, whereas Resident Evil 1 was more dread focused. And I think the tone is more interested in being like surprising and being big and I don't know, just like overwhelming in its horror depictions. It's kind of like the difference between a kind of gory monster horror versus more like a slower, more independent kind of horror. I guess I'm not a big horror person. I don't like horror, but yeah, I thought from my perspective, playing both of these games, I felt like Camille was a really big, action-packed director who is interested in horror from like a surprise angle of having those intense moments of emotion. So yeah, I don't know if you disagree with that.
See, I kind of agree and I kind of don't. I mean, the thing about action packed is that it's technically a good way to describe this in that you are doing a lot of actions, but like, it's not like exploding or killing things, you know? It's more like you have to act in this moment, otherwise you will die. I think powerless and overwhelming is the best way to put it. Like, the entire opening, which is not just you spawn in a room with 4 zombies and they all immediately crawl towards you, but you run past those zombies and you run into another room with 4 other zombies. And this goes on for like 10 consecutive rooms. It's like, I mean, immediately it teaches you, even if you know how to shoot, you're not going to be able to shoot down all these zombies. There's no ammo, like, I don't think in the entire game to shoot down this hallway of zombies. But it's like, you just have to like start running past them, and sometimes you get bit and sometimes you don't, and you have to kind of just roll with it. So it's like adrenaline pumping, but it's adrenaline pumping, but it's also like you are still made to feel extremely powerless. And another thing I feel like, I mean, this is a complete claim I'm pulling out of my ass because I didn't play any other Resident Evil game, but because but I do think this is doing the thing that I like about Danganronpa 2, which is that it's about fucking with the
I'm sorry, continue.
just gonna sneak in Danganronpa whenever I can to any episode. It's what I like about Danganronpa 2, which is that it's about fucking with the expectations of the players who may have played the first one and felt like they had control over it because they beat the first one. In that it's messing with your expectations. One of the best parts of the game is when you first get past that hallway of zombies, you walk into this guy's ammo shop, and the guy like locks the door, and he's like, "Oh, thank God you're here! If I thought you're like the only survivor," and he's like, "I'm gonna hold down the place. You look around, see if you can get any weapons and stuff." And like 10 seconds later, the zombies walk in and kill him immediately. Like you think, "Oh, this is gonna be like a guy who's gonna help me, like at least for a little bit before he dies." No, like you wait like 10 seconds, and the guy dies, and you have to run away again. Like the game gives you no opportunity to rest. And that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I do love that aspect. Although I will disagree on the sort of scarcity of the ammo. From the first game, I felt like there was so much more ammo in this game. I I did basically kill every single zombie I saw, and I
Really?
think I was just more efficient at it because I had the first game's experience of like how to best fight these zombies while conserving the ammo. And I basically never had a problem with ammo in this game compared to the first one. I have heard that Resident Evil 2 is like relatively easy for the series, but I've only played the first two, so I can't say for sure. But I didn't have really any difficulty in this game personally. But
Okay.
yeah,
I mean, I did never run out of ammo, so I guess that is something. I can definitely see how the ammo would be scarcer, but I do think like the hardest parts of the game are, well, I'm thinking about the shotgun, I guess, which you can use to clear large parts of zombies. There is a
right.
part in the game where I just did not have any shotgun ammo, and there was, I mean, a room with the most zombies that you've ever seen in your life stuck in one room. It's almost like just like a fuck you amount of zombies. And I had to legitimately search the entire place until I found shotgun ammo in a place I didn't pick up to even continue the game. That it is still a threat. For pistols, though, I don't know. I still feel like, I mean, even if I didn't shoot down all the zombies, I still wanted to keep my ammo because there could be another room I ran into later that could use up all my ammo. It's always, I mean, with Resident Evil 2, what I felt like was there's always something in the future that you have to prepare for, you know, long term. That's what survival is all about, not just short term, long term.
Fair enough. Now, we did say that the writing was done by someone else, but do you have any thoughts about the way that the narrative is directed in this game? Not just the gameplay. Do you have anything? Because I kind of don't. He feels so disinterested in character to me. It's just like the cutscenes are completely separate from everything else, and basically any character expression within the gameplay is just kind of like shooting things and exploding things. It's like I couldn't get anything. I didn't think he was really interested in these characters at all.
Okay. I don't think I'm as negative as you about the writing. It's
I'm
just,
not
it didn't
negative
really,
about it. I think it's a well-written game. I just don't
okay.
think from a director's perspective he's doing very much. Like the camera angles aren't focused on like trying to tell a story besides like the actual environment and what you see around you. Is a lot of like wide shots and a lot of like I don't know, interest in being able to play the game without having any distractions. It's like being able to see your character, see all the enemies, and be able to fight them without having any difficulty with the camera. Whereas with the first game, I felt like there were moments where storytelling was being done with the camera. There are these moments where you'd see like a medium shot, which feels like a close up in a video game, where you just kind of like see the main character after a big fight or something, and it's just like a medium shot of their face and everything. And it's like, okay, this is really weird. I never see this in the game before, but Resident Evil 2 felt a lot more, I don't know, standard video game kind of stuff to me.
Yeah, what you're describing with like medium shots about the main character's expression, that's not in this game. Yeah, I would say Leon is the least interesting character in the story, I think. What's more interesting is basically everybody around it. Okay, to be clear, I did not finish this game. I was very short on time. I know there's like 4 campaigns. I only played the
Right.
first one, which is in the police station. I do think there's a lot of good storytelling in this police station with just regards to like what everybody was doing before this whole outbreak stuff happened and how you can tell within the environment. There was this beautiful moment at the beginning where when you walk into the police station, there's a guy who's dying and he's like, go and find the other people. I'll tell you what's happening. And he's like, okay, and then I'll come back for you. Right. And the guy pushes you out the door and then immediately locks the door in from the inside. Which I mean, is great for showing empathy for like what these people are doing to like help other people, but also is just like shows how desperate the situation is. I love how just bodies are being scattered all around. I even love the text posts that are left behind, which there are a surprising amount of a lot of text files. But they're all written by different people and you can tell they all have different types of English. I don't know. It's a great way of like getting out information in definitely a gamey way, not a cinematic way. But yeah, besides that, when it comes to like showing internal emotion, yeah, there's none of that within the game.
I will walk back my claim before. I think they're like the structure of the game itself is kind of interesting because you can basically play different routes and see different sides of each story. Basically, there's one where you're more focused on kind of the bottom of the police station, and the other one is more focused on the top. Kind of, it's they're you're doing the
Wait,
same
what?
areas. I mean, you explore both. So basically, on the I want to say the A route, you start off at the bottom of the police station and sort of move your way around. And on the
Oh,
B route, you start at the top of the police station and move your way like kind of left. And the routes are more similar than I thought they would be. I thought there was going to be a lot of differences, but you're basically going the same areas. But there is an interest in kind of showing both sides of a situation because if you don't kill the police officer, for example, after he turns into a zombie in the A route, you'll actually come back to him in the B route and have to fight him and kill him, which I thought
no.
was kind of interesting. So, like, it's called the zapping system. It doesn't make any sense that it's called the zapping system, where basically after each playthrough, you can kind of see a different side of what's happening. And there is some interaction between the two times when you play through the game, but there isn't really a lot. I think people really overstate how much interaction there is between routes, but there is an interest in telling a story by being kind of showing both sides of a situation. Like,
You keep saying both sides of a situation.
yeah.
I want to emphasize you do not play as the zombies in the other side of the game, okay? You play as another human, I'm guessing. You do not
Okay,
play as
yeah. You're not
zombies.
seeing yeah, when you play as Leon and Claire, I mean both sides, as in both Leon's perspective and Claire's perspective of the same events, that couldn't possibly happen at the same time, but they are kind of consistent E.
Okay.
It's really weird.
I don't even know how that would work. I'm thinking about it right now because the police station, I mean, it's pretty big, but it's not that big. The idea of there being 2 stories going on at the same time, that's interesting.
Yeah, but I think in concept it's interesting, but you're basically playing the exact same game. So like you're fighting the exact same zombies, you're doing most of the same I want to say most of the same bosses. You're like going through the same area, doing very similar routes throughout the space, and the the consistency between routes just doesn't make any sense. But it makes game sense, I guess. So it's something. But from a narrative perspective, I couldn't figure out what's going on because like sometimes you'll clear out a whole room of zombies in the first route, and then all the zombies will be in the same place as the last route. So it's like, where are Leon and Claire at the same time? Like, what is happening? Where is he? What is he
Okay.
doing?
I don't really care
I
about
don't
that.
know.
That's getting into Cinema Sins territory. I don't really care about that. But yeah, I guess I really thought there would be like another environment. Okay, that's interesting.
I mean, it's not like me trying to nitpick. It's me trying to figure out what is actually happening in the other route. Like, is he still fighting everything? Is he still doing the same bosses? Because I'm fighting some of the same bosses. So what is happening here?
It's a parallel universe where Leon just sat on his ass and he just entered the hallway, like the lobby, and just sat down and like crossed his arms and didn't do anything. They're not paying me enough for this.
Leon's just hiding in the closet while Claire kills everything for him in
Yeah,
this universe.
that's it. You got it.
Anyway, Resident Evil 2 was a fairly big success. It didn't sell as much as the first game, which kind of surprised me because Resident Evil 2 is like one of the most acclaimed games in the series. People really like this one. From Capcom's perspective, they were really happy with the result. It sold really well. People really liked it. So they brought on Hideki Kamiya to do the next game, Resident Evil 3. But production kind of stalled again. Things were going a little slowly. Things were going great. So they brought on another team to do Resident Evil 3 and said, Kamiya, you're doing Resident Evil 4. So, Resident Evil 4, there's going to be another game with Leon. He's got silver hair now, but it's definitely a lot more action oriented. He's going around this haunted house. This time he has a sword and guns. And then Mikami kind of saw that and was like, this doesn't feel like a Resident Evil game. What's going on here? Kamiya, what are you doing? This isn't Resident Evil. So then Devil May Cry was born. Resident Evil
Oh,
4 or Resident Evil 3 turned into Resident Evil 4, which then turned into which then turned into Devil May Cry, a completely different series with a different protagonist, and Leon transformed into everyone's favorite Devil May Cry character, Dante. You seem a little surprised.
so
Do you
was
know?
there a playable version of Resident Evil 4 that played like Devil May Cry?
No, unlike Resident Evil 1.5, there isn't like a leaked version of Resident Evil 4 the beginning. I think that they had the exact same house and model and everything. So it would have been a much more incremental change from Resident Evil 4 to Devil May Cry. But it was originally Resident Evil 4, and you can definitely see the
Okay,
similarities in this game.
I can see that. Yeah. Okay, they probably had to have hit the reset button though. I feel like I don't know. There's just okay. I mean, yeah, playing this game
Okay,
even
original concept of Resident Evil 4 was that Leon had this mutant abilities from the zombie virus, and then he had all these superpowers from fighting all these zombies. So all the magic and stuff in Devil May Cry was originally supposed to be zombie powers that Leon had.
okay.
So
I
a
mean,
lot less basic than you think.
that sounds like Resident Evil 5 to me from what I've seen of that game. It's just like you punching a
Even
guy
further.
through the stomach and then exploding him into a million pieces. Yeah. Devil May Cry is I really like this game. I think Devil May Cry crosses over a lot with Resident Evil 2 in similarities. I just like thinking about it for a little bit, in that they both open with a guy being visited by a girl in very relatively actiony sequence where they fight each other, and then the girl says, "Okay, I'll help you," and then she disappears, and you don't see her again for like several hours. And it's just left to you to wander around the spooky mansion, backtracking occasionally and fighting monsters. The main difference, though, is I mean, if I had to pitch this game to someone who doesn't know what Devil May Cry is, it's imagine playing Resident Evil 2, where you're walking around and occasionally you get scared by a monster, but when you get scared by your monster, your immediate reaction is to pull out a sword and blow them up into a million pieces instead of running away.
I love it. It's so good. It's like if you're in a horror game plot and environment, but you have an action game protagonist who just kills everything without any problem. Or, I
Yeah,
mean,
the
it's a
second you
hard
see
game,
someone, it's
but
just
it's
like, fuck you. It's great.
he just slashes through all these monsters and like jokes around. And I think the contrast is just really funny in this game. I love it. It is so unique in tone to me because of that sort of horror action divide while still kind of coming together in that way. It's so cool. I love Devil May Cry.
Yeah. What I really like about what Kamiya does here with the story is how even more stripped back it is. You open on a woman visiting a place called Devil May Cry, and it's apparently Dante's agency, which she does as detective work, which you could only find out by reading the manual. And she's immediately like, "I need your help. You slayed a lot of demons, even though we haven't shown any of that yet, or shown any of your skills, or even what city you live in. So I'm going to send you to hell." And then she sends him to hell, and you never see the above world again. I'm assuming for the rest of the game. And she's like, I'll be here to help you. Follow me." She disappears, and then you don't see her again for 3 hours. Great game.
So yeah, this is a very action-oriented game. It's often credited with kind of defining the character action genre, where you have lots of different moves, lots of different player expression to fight these enemies in your own way with swords and guns, all these different items. And it's a lot more focused on building a combo and killing things efficiently, rather than sort of dancing around an enemy and fighting them one on one. It is definitely sort of the height of action in video games at that period. And there's also a gameplay mechanic in this game that you start to see throughout Kamiya's career, where there's an interest in sort of getting high scores in the middle of the game. It's not like a lot of old games where you get a score after you beat the game, but there's these little sections where you get a grade at the end of each chapter based on amount of time it took you, about how good your combos were. You get little expressions at the top to say, "Oh, you're doing a awesome job. You're doing a stylish job with all your fighting." So it is interested in like getting high scores in the middle of your game. You can see Kamiya's interest in the arcade influence. And this is something that kind of exists in Resident Evil 2. After you beat the game, you get a grade based on the amount of time you did and the items you used. But here it's definitely bringing it to the forefront. It really wants you to get these high scores, which is then tied to the currency in the game to get you items. So you should be like thinking about the most efficient way to play this game at any given moment by getting all the stylish points, finding all the secrets, doing things quickly. It is a very sort of instrumentalized way of playing a game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. This is something that really surprised me pleasantly because normally I'm the kind of person who doesn't care about high scores at all, especially not clear ties. I'll do it however I like to. Thank you very much. But what's nice about this grading system is how it's both like in units but also overarching. You'll see this frequently in that there's like several missions, a lot of missions. There's like dozens of missions in this game, and several missions are just like picking up a thing and going to a place. But other missions are like defeating an entire boss and stuff like that. And you get graded for each of these. But what's nice about them is that they tie into each other. So like you'll open a door and complete a mission, and the next mission will just start you after, like immediately coming out of the same door that you just walked into. And you could walk back and immediately just backtrack the way you came. So it's like a Metroidvania in that you're exploring the same space, like literally in Castlevania, you're exploring the same castle, but generally these missions are like very objective based, so you know where to go to immediately next to tell you at the very start of the mission. But it ties into the idea that it's like an overall space, like in Resident Evil 2, but it also grades you and rewards you regularly for like very short goals that you can achieve in a very short time, which keeps you moving and moving and moving.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that you like can explore this area. It's definitely possible, but because these missions are so short and the objective is like a few rooms away, you never really feel the obligation to move around and like try and find stuff. You just go straight to the next objective.
I think it lends to the atmosphere, and it gives you like a good idea that this whole everything in this castle is connected. And I think it's weird to describe it like this, but I think of it like a half episodic, half serial TV show where you can like put
Yeah.
it down, like go to school or whatever the people who play this game did, come back, pick up the controller, and you'll be like, okay, I'm in this part of the castle and I need to do this. Like it's good. And of course, having a goal that constantly resets where you're trying to get the highest score possible. I don't know. Usually I wouldn't care, but tying it to the currency system where you can like permanently upgrade your hero's health and like make them double jump and add like, additional skills to them, that really encouraged me because yeah, this game it's hard. um, Hard but not frustrating, which is what was interesting to me. At the end of the last episode, I don't know if you included this, but you told me, you gave me a rule where you were like, if you felt
Right.
frustrated at any point, feel free to, or not only feel free, but you must quit, basically.
Yes.
And that's all you have to come to the episode to. I didn't do that with this game. Not really. Well, okay. I did in that I put it down for a week and then I picked it up and I was like, oh, I don't know. I kind of forgot how to do a lot of stuff in this game.
That
But
quickly. Wow.
the recording time was already running up to this episode and I played like halfway through the game already. So I was like, I already got enough. It's fine. Yeah. But yeah, oh yeah. I mean, this is totally stolen valor. And I'm sorry if this pisses off listeners to say, but this game is what I imagine what people think Souls-like games are, despite never having played a
You
Souls-like
haven't
game.
played Dark Souls.
I still have not played Dark Souls. That's right. I've played Birth by Madison Carr, but I haven't played Dark Souls.
Oh my
I'm
god.
I'm kicking off the A-listers on my list.
Okay, but I will second that as someone who has played all the Souls games. This does have a lot of Dark Souls energy. I was really surprised by the tone, to be honest. I'd always seen Dante and Devil May Cry as being like a really silly, goofy series. But this was like relatively subdued. There are definitely silly moments, but it overall feels kind of like a horror game. but like a horror game without ever being scary at any moment and having lots of action at any given time. But
I wouldn't say horror. It's like horror themed. Yeah. I mean, the thing that was making the thing it was making me think of the most was weirdly enough the Matrix, which makes sense because it was released 2 years after the Matrix. But there's a lot of
oh
like
yeah,
Matrix iconography in there. The woman that shows up, I think her name is Trish, looks pretty much exactly like Trinity. Every time the fight starts, basically the same kind of new metal soundtrack starts as when like the airport scene in the Matrix. I don't know. Dante does a lot of like come over here, yeah, like jujitsu stuff. I think that's pretty similar.
I can't believe I didn't think about that connection. It is so similar. He's got the trench coat and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got all those big guns and stuff. I can't believe I didn't realize the Matrix influence. It is so there. It's crazy.
Yeah, so it's like actiony, but like mean and cool. A little bit mean. Mostly cool. Yeah.
Yeah, Dante would definitely get a lot more silly in future games, but here he does kind of feel like an action movie protagonist. That's like he has those silly comeback lines, but overall he's like a serious dude fighting things in like really big epic ways.
He doesn't really
Interesting.
get that many lines of dialogue, actually. That's what I noticed. Besides
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first opening cutscene.
It is again not super interested in the narrative. I want to say that there is more kind of here thematically than Resident Evil 2, like is interested in something regarding the humanity and comparing Dante as like a devil and his human aspect versus his brother and stuff. I don't really have anything to say there, but there is something. I think that he is interested in exploring some ideas, but the way that the game is like presenting things. It's definitely not focused on those things. He's not interested in spending the budget on it. He's not interested in spending the player's time on it. It is mostly focused on the action bits, in my opinion.
If there is something in the story, I didn't see it. I do think I resonated a lot more with Resident Evil 2 story, what there is of it, than Devil May Cry
Okay.
2. At least there is like attempts to explain, or like there are glimpses of empathy of the people who died in the police station in Resident Evil 2. Meanwhile, here it's just you're exploring a spooky castle. I didn't really get the sense that he cared about anything in this castle other than you pick up an item that's like the pyramid of sorrow, and then you put it into a slot that says "Put the pyramid of sorrow here." That's like most of the game's puzzles. Yeah. Meanwhile,
Well,
when you're in the police station and you're like putting in jewels in the slots, there's like a whole explanation of how the police station is like corrupt and in league with like a cabal or something. Like there's explanation for that.
yeah, I mean, I want to say that Resident Evil 2 is a lot more plot focused. It is interested in the events as they are happening. Whereas I think Devil May Cry isn't interested in plot, but it is interested in sort of exploring the relationship between the evil and humanity and religion. I don't think it says anything really deep about it, but I do think that it wants to explore that.
If you're talking about like broader themes and iconography, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Resident Evil 2 is mainly just focused on how humans are trying to survive in a zombie apocalypse. That's like the primary thing it's concerned with.
Right. So Devil May Cry was a really big deal. I mean, probably not as much as Resident Evil 2, but it did start the character action genre. It's kind of revolutionary for hack and slash games, where you're kind of fighting a bunch of different enemies on screen at once. God of War would kind of take over that at some point. But for a while, Devil May Cry was like the defining character action game. Devil May Cry was sort of a defining PS2 game, but soon, Kamiya would be joining the GameCube. He was a part of a lineup that Capcom was doing where they were doing a few different games exclusive to the GameCube, which would also include the actual Resident Evil 4 when that would eventually come out. But these were kind of more, I want to say smaller budget, but they were more interested in being kind of director focused. These were pretty unique projects that were coming to the GameCube. A lot of them either didn't stay exclusive or didn't get the kind of recognition and sales that Capcom was interested in. But one of these games was Viewtiful Joe. And this is kind of like, I want to say that this is where you can see that Kamiya's style is kind of being defined, because this is another game with like a kind of silly, confident male protagonist who is interested in being kind of big and emphasizing style while still being like a very arcadey experience beat 'em up.
Viewtiful Joe is a story about the average Hideki Kamiya fan, where it opens and it's him taking his date to this movie he's already seen a million times and ignoring her and like shoving popcorn in her face and being like, "I don't care about you," and she's like, "You're like the worst human being I've ever met." And then a guy a giant neck reaches through the screen and abducts her into the film world, and he gets to be a film guy, just like you will by playing this game. It's interesting to me how much this game uses filmic language and being like it's explicitly a tribute to the movies, like throughout the entire game, and it's like the least cinematic game he's made so far. Anyways, it's a side-scrolling beat 'em up game about Viewtiful Joe. To be clear, the movie they're watching is basically like this tokusatsu movie. They even say Henshin when he transforms into Viewtiful Joe, which is his alter ego, this giant superhero who could beat up stuff. Speaking of the Matrix from the previous game, this is explicitly in the game now because you can slow down time and dodge bullets. Viewtiful Joe's main ability is that he can turn slow-mo on, although there is like a limit gauge where he drains it down, and he can like do things like punch people's bullets back at them or dodge people's attacks, stuff like that. But it's mainly about moving right. Like, it's very arcadey in that it's like constantly about beating up everybody on the screen, and then when you're done, you move to the next room, which is always to the right. And I mean, no, that's basically it. That's basically it.
Yeah, this is like probably the most arcadey game that he has. It is a very like standard beat 'em up, which is really interesting. This is the 2000s were basically the time where beat 'em ups were kind of basically dead. This is like the highest profile beat 'em up I've seen still, I
Uh,
think. I really don't think that people are really making them very much anymore. Even in like the indie space, definitely not in the AAA big company space that like Beautiful Joe is operating in. But it is just kind of going through rooms and killing all the enemies by punching them. And it's amazing. It's great. It's again focused on getting those high scores in very individual moments. These are much more frequent. For basically every fight, you're going to be getting a score at the end to see how well you did based on the time, whether you got hit or not. It's the same idea of getting these high scores, using those scores to buy things from a shop and continue to do well. I love this game, but it's also very difficult. People complained about the difficulty for a very long time. They even released a lower difficulty version in Japan afterwards. I feel like I don't have very much to say about Beautiful Joe, but I do love it. It's very
Okay.
strange.
I had a very different reaction to you. I mean, I don't dislike this game. It's just I was definitely oversold in this game a lot. I mean, the thing about hanging out around niche gaming spaces, well, not niche, but like gaming spaces centered around indie games and I guess cooler Japanese games that came from the past, is that people keep
Cool
talking about
people.
yeah, all the cool people, unlike the rest of you who play the AAA games like Dark Souls. I'm the cool one.
Oh my god.
Um,
I'm going to make you play Dark Souls at one of these points.
I dare you. I'll skip the entire episode. I don't even care. Um, no, but people kept talking about Beautiful Joe like it was the greatest thing of all time, and I went into it with the extremely incorrect expectations, thinking it was going to be something like Gunstar Heroes, which just moves extremely fast. That's not what this game is. It doesn't move nearly as fast as even like Devil May Cry. It's actually pretty leisurely. I don't know. Connect much with this game. I don't really like beat 'em ups. It doesn't have the overarching thing that I like about Devil May Cry, where it's like the missions, like doing well in one mission carries over to the next mission. It's just, oh, you go to the next mission, I guess. I didn't get to the part where you bought from stores. I didn't know there was an easy mode, to be fair. I played it on the normal mode. I couldn't even get past the first level. This was the only game where I actually had to use the rule that you gave me, where it's like, if you feel frustrated, quit. I quit at the end of the first level with the fucking helicopter. Didn't get past that part. Never went back
Well,
to it.
one, that is not the end of the first level, but I will
Oh
say
no.
that is that is also where I quit the game. That fucking helicopter. I played this game as I'm like a teenager at some point. I was a really big fan of Beautiful Joe from the crossover games. I really liked him in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. It's like my favorite fighting game character ever. So I really wanted to play Beautiful Joe based on that. The marketing worked on me. I played it for my boy Phoenix Wright, and I was like, oh shit, Beautiful Joe is really fun too. I don't play as him. Now I gotta play his video game. So then I did, and I was like, oh, this game is hard. I don't know if I could beat this. I've been stuck on this one boss for hours, and I did not getting any closer. What is happening? So I quitted the helicopter for years, and it was only like this year I came back to it and I was like, oh, I understand these mechanics better now. I have more experience playing difficult games. I have more experience playing beat 'em ups, and now I can actually play through this game enjoyably. I think it definitely requires like a bigger background in arcade games that like Kamiya had, and I can't imagine like a child playing this game. Like this game feels like it's marketed towards children in a way. Like it's a very bright game. Beautiful Joe is like a like kind of like childlike character, but it is so hard. I can't believe that this was released in this state, and I love it. I love how difficult it is, but at the time I hated it. It was so hard, and I had to quit.
I guess that is very arcadey. Like you retry the same thing
Yeah,
over and over again. And I think the main character is kind of a nod towards that, towards like you have to be the kind of person who's into this kind of geeky stuff already to maybe kind of get a
right.
handle on it. I don't know. I mean, another explanation is that I might just be stupid. At the end of the two and a
No,
half hours while I played the game, I put it down and it shows that demo when you leave the controller down. And only then did I figure out that you could deflect bullets by punching them. I didn't figure it out during my entire 2.5 hours of play that you could actually do that. So I was missing some stuff.
you're not stupid. I think I might not have even realized that when I played it as well. So I don't know. I think it is a game that like tutorializes a lot, but also doesn't explain a lot of essential things, which
Yeah.
is interesting. Like there are puzzles in this game which make no sense. So Beautiful Joe has the power to slow down time and speed up time. And sometimes this means that a fan during slow-mo is like less effective. It's doing less fan stuff, which
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. Like if you film a fan and you slow it down, it's not actually getting slower, but Beautiful Joe speeds up in relation to the slowed down thing. It's very confusing. It definitely works more on like a surface level than a deeper level. So you kind of have to like, I feel like a lot through it, how these games, you have to like think about it as a video game first, before you like think about the logic. And again, I want to say he's very much a gamer video game director, but he is like the purest form of a video game director in my mind.
I will say that it worked. I didn't get frustrated very quickly at this game in that like I was redoing the same mission over and over and over again, the first mission, but I was willing to stick with it for a long time. And I don't feel like that was because I was like willing to hear it out of frustration, but like, I don't know. There is something about the game that's like fun to play until I got to the helicopter segment. But, you know,
Yeah. Anyway, I love this game. I think it is designed very well, but it feels like a very, very niche game. I think it being like kind of a cult classic. I think Capcom wanted it to be bigger. It sold a few 100,000 units, but they had all these spin-offs and sequels, and even an anime lined up afterward. I don't know anyone that liked Beautiful Joe during this time period, but there must be people out there. It feels like they wanted this to be a big franchise, and it kind of didn't end up being that way. I'm still waiting for a Beautiful Joe 3. I would love that to happen, but I can't imagine it ever happening.
I wouldn't say it's niche now. I mean, at least from reputation, it is definitely a cult classic. But it's like when you bring up the GameCube, people do bring up Viewtiful Joe like a lot.
Really?
To me, at least, it feels like it's one of the landmark games. It's one of the games I was like, okay, this is one of the first 5 games I should play if I'm going to hone in on the GameCube. So that's
Again,
just my perspective.
I think you're embedded in a lot of communities that like niche Japanese kind of games.
Sure,
I think
but it
like
shows up on like IGN lists. It's not that niche. I would say.
yeah, I mean I don't think that the gun and ball video game players, as people call them, would have ever heard of Beautiful Joe. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Anyway, Beautiful Joe wasn't the biggest hit in the world, but it did very well. Capcom decided to bring the team together and sort of make their team official. They were called Team Beautiful at the time, and they became Clover Studios, which is going to be their more artistic, uh, director focused studio, more interested in making new IP, interested in doing these creative, strange games that were less focused on like advertising to a wide audience and more like having critical acclaim and sort of proving that Capcom was a great video game studio. So the next game that Camille would be working on for Clover Studios was Okami. This was kind of known for being kind of a Zelda-like game where you're play as a wolf in a Japanese like painting inspired game. Uh, it is influenced by a lot of Japanese folklore. There are like sort of comedic retellings of the game. I mean, of these myths. I kind of like compare it to Percy Jackson. That's the first thing that comes to mind of a game that is like humorously pointing at a lot of Japanese folklore and kind of adapting it, but also at the same time commenting on it and doing kind of a silly version of it. You're playing as Amaterasu, who is based off a real Japanese god. But this time she's a wolf. It's kind of like putting a different spin on things. And you play as her, you go through all these different dungeons, like a Zelda game. You meet all the villagers, you go on these little mini side quests in an overarching story. And I don't like this game. I really dislike Okami. It was it is a very highly praised game. People love Okami. Some people call it the best Zelda game. I don't understand why they do that. But basically I had heard all the praise for Okami, how beautiful it is, how great the music is. I love the music. I love how great it looks. But people talk about this game like it's incredible, like it's a life changing thing. And I played this, hearing all the praise when I was a kid, and I was like, oh, I don't like this. This was one of the first times I saw a critically acclaimed game that other people liked, and I didn't. And I don't know.
The birth of
I
a
can definitely get
cynic.
into it, but I
Wow.
don't want to start off too negative. What are your thoughts, Calvin?
Okay. I was going to ask you, but yeah, we'll get to it later. I would say I feel like I can't judge this game because it's literally like 33 hours long, and I played, I think, the first 3 hours. So I don't think I could really give like an opinion you should trust about this game. But I liked what I played of it. I kind of want to butt against what you said earlier about it being a comedic retelling of Japanese folklore. I mean, I'm sure there is definitely like comedic parts of it, but I do feel like my impression of this game going into it is that, oh, this guy is like dead serious about this stuff. Not dead serious, but like he cares about Japanese folklore severely. This is the only game of his that has a credit straight off when you start the game. When you open the game, there's a credit that says Hideki Kamiya, but it doesn't say directed by Hideki Kamiya. It says story by Hideki Kamiya. That's the only credit that appears at the beginning of the game, and there's no other credits. So it's like this guy really cares about it. It also opens with like a 20-minute cutscene, which explains like the entire world's lore to you. So it's like it obviously cares about this kind of stuff. There
How do you
is,
feel
I
about that
mean,
cutscene, by the way?
I was interested, to be honest, in that I thought it was going to be like a meta. You told me at the end of the episode, oh, get ready to watch a 30-minute cutscene for Okami, and I was like, oh god. I was thinking it was going to be like a Metal Gear Solid thing, where it's like I literally just don't do anything. I just sit there and put the controller down and watch a 30-minute movie. There is like text that you advance and multiple camera angles and stuff like that. So it's more like a very long intro for a Zelda game, which Zelda has done before. I didn't think it was that intrusive, yeah, but I would also say this: I didn't enjoy the gameplay that much. This was maybe the game I enjoyed the gameplay of the least. Especially when what he tries to do with the arcade stuff in here just does not work at all for a 33-hour
Right.
solo
I agree.
adventure. There's combat sections in this game which I don't even know why he put them in here, where it's like you're thrown into a wrestling ring. There's a ring of fire around you whenever you enter a wrestling battle, and it's like random encounters almost in Pokemon, where it's like you can't go anywhere. You just have to defeat all the people in there or run away like explicitly like a wuss. And all the uh, there's no moves that you can do, at least not at the beginning. So maybe it gets better later on, but it's very boring as at the beginning. You just beat up people, you draw a line through them to destroy them. More on that later. Just yeah, I don't care about the gameplay at all. And even really the fetch quest I didn't care about. It's very like basic Zelda to me, but again, it was the first 3 hours. But the presentation, I mean, the presentation of all of Kamiya's games so far are fantastic. But this one especially just looks beautiful. You can tell, I don't know, the story especially is just, to bring back what I said about iconography earlier, this is where I think, this is like, I don't know, the most Kamiya has cared about the story, I think. And he's trying to shove all this stuff in. I think the point he's trying to make seems to be reactionary. I don't know what his politics are, but it seems to be. I mean, the story seems to be the Japan is falling in decay because people don't believe in gods anymore. It's your job to go throughout Japan and spread the word of the gods until they believe in you again, and they can defeat the moral evil, which is very vague, but it is moral and it is evil, and that's what the game is. Yeah, but I would say this is like his biggest attempt to like say something with a game besides just
Yeah.
gameplay.
I think this is a work that is most focused on narrative compared to like everything else throughout his career. You can definitely feel that passion, that interest within this game compared to the other ones, where the game will just focus on these narrative events through cutscenes, through different little quests, side quests, where you learn more about characters. There's a lot more focus on sort of these interactions and doing it through the gameplay. There's like quiet moments. There are more puzzling moments. It's not always focused on action compared to everything else. But I really dislike it. I don't like his character writing very much. there are character arcs in this. I don't want to completely discount it. There are interesting things that this does narratively. And there's even when looking back on it, thinking about how much I disliked this game as a child, there were things that I very much thought were interesting. The ending points of a lot of the character arcs, the endings of the game, I thought were really good, really interesting. But I think the storytelling itself is very slow. It is very, very boring, in my opinion. That's a very substantial criticism, but I did not like it. It is constantly sort of pulling up the sidekick character Isun to comment on what just happened. It is like every time you have a conversation, he comes back up and goes like, "Oh, this is describing what the situation was," and it feels like it has a lot of the problems that people have with the Zelda games on the Wii, Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. This game also has, but I don't hear the same criticisms. You have a really annoying sidekick who basically solves all the puzzles for you and adds nothing character wise to the beginning of the game. At least he gets better at the end, but he's just insufferable at the very beginning. The opening is
Yeah.
very slow and boring. The combat isn't interesting, and God, I have so many problems with this.
Okay. I mean, okay, the one thing this does add that makes it not a Zelda game is, I guess you could say it's gimmick. In Nintendo terms, it's gimmick, which is the brush. You are literally like the sun god. Are you the god? I feel like that's what they imply at the beginning of the game, but I don't know. But you could basically control the world by drawing of a brush directly on the game, which is very, very, very cleverly tied into how it's presented. In that, I don't know if you noticed this, the game is presented as like a Japanese scroll, and the Japanese scroll, the top and bottom come down like widescreen aspect ratio bars whenever there's a cutscene. I thought that was a very good way of integrating like his interest in cinematic parts of video games with Japanese folklore. But yeah, since the entire game is a Japanese scroll, you can have a brush interact with the screen of the game to like literally draw a circle to create the sun and make it day again, or you can draw lines to cut things like literally in the form of the game. So you're being an omniscient god within the realm of the game while also still having a physical form within the form of this dog. Yeah, but this also entertains. Besides that, though, this does entertain what I think are the worst aspects of the Zelda game. The parts that I like the least, like when they introduce characters that are basically just their only personality is they're an asshole to you. They're like, "Oh, get me this liquor, I'm gonna kick you," yeah, and then you get it for them, and they're still mean to you. This game has the audacity to introduce your sidekick character, who is like your Jiminy Cricket, like. He speaks for the main character, and he's supposed to be like your advisor, but he's also extremely annoying. They try to make him. Isun is supposed to be like the main comparison I can think of is Kikuchiyo from Seven Samurai, the character played by Toshio Mifune, who's just like, he wants to be a samurai, but he's just like a complete asshole who falls backward on his ass and drinks a lot. He's like a leering, lecher, pervert, wandering artist who doesn't draw. And is also like, he explicitly tells you multiple times that he's accompanying you to leech off of your powers, which, I mean, that's pretty funny, honestly. I like that. But the game has the audacity to introduce that character and then introduce another asshole drunk character that you have to interact with in the first 3 hours of the game. And those two go back and forth with each other. And it's just like, God, get me out of here. And then there's another character that's introduced that's your spiritual advisor, but also the game is very crass about her in that like people like hit on her and her boobs are like in the shape of a peach. It comes off to me like as the impression of like a crass Zelda. Like it would be exactly the Zelda that was written by the guy who wrote Viewtiful Joe. Like that's what I would imagine. Whether I could stand that for 33 hours, I don't know. That's another story.
Yeah, I don't have problems with like the characters being assholes or anything in concept. It's just that it feels like they're going on long comedy routines, and I didn't find any of it funny. Like
That's the thing.
you
Yeah.
seem to, yeah,
It felt like it was hitting the same note over and over and over again, even for the short amount of time I played for it. I don't know if it goes like that the entire game.
yeah. It reminds me a lot of like pervert characters in anime, which they offend me less on a feminist level and more like a comedic level. Like, why are we doing the same joke over and over again? This isn't
Yeah.
funny. It wasn't funny the first time, and we're doing it over and over again. When is this going to end? We're doing this for minutes at a time, and this game has like really slow text and dialogue and cutscenes, so it feels excruciating to get to. There's no comedic timing in this game because you're just pressing through these text boxes with slow text that you can't change. I don't like it. I dislike this game.
Yeah. Well, what really is a shame is that there's a part of this game that just feels so good to me, which is mainly the running, to be honest. I love that. I mean, this is such a small detail, but these kinds of small details make everything in video games. I love when Amaterasu runs, and if you get like a good enough speed before colliding into anything, she just speeds up, and then you can speed up even faster and faster and faster. That feels like very Kamiya, like exciting levels of Kamiya to me, and it makes exploration or even backtracking way more fun. That's such a nice addition to a Zelda-like game. And then they just added all the other bullshit I dislike about Zelda, constantly annoying characters and annoying stuff about Kamiya's stuff, like the arcadey fighting segments. It's like you didn't have to have all this, you know?
Yeah,
You could have done
this
something
game is
different.
so beautiful. The art style is great. The music is fantastic. Even though I dislike this game, I had this soundtrack in my YouTube playlist for like a decade afterward because I kept listening to The Sun Rises and Reset all the time for a game I didn't particularly like. But when I'm actually playing through this game, I feel so disappointed. Like the Kamiya-isms in this game, the fact that he always instrumentalizes gameplay where basically everything has a gameplay element. He's interested in systems. Like this game is supposed to be focused on nature in theory. Like it's interested in how restoring nature, seeing the ways that people are interacting with it, and sort of bringing the goddess's glory and beauty to the world. But there are so many pop-ups in this game where you like fight an enemy, like, oh, here's an enemy, here's gonna pop up all these different things, and then you fight the enemy and you're interested in just fighting this, and there's like nothing else on your mind during this time period. And then there's the pop-up like, oh, how well did you fight the enemy? You really want to be doing well. Think about how well you're doing in this fight. And then it's like, oh, here are the items you got afterward. Pop up, pop up, pop up. And it's like, oh my god, I want to look at this beautiful space. I want to be interacting with nature. But all I see is how much money I'm making. How much money you're gonna make from this? What items are you gonna get? It's like it kind of feels like a parody to me of like a consumer's video game, but set in a nature area because it's like everything in this universe that is supposed to be beautiful is being corrupted by capitalism. It's being corrupted by by items, by having to constantly think about the digital interface, by constantly thinking about all these systems that you're interacting with. Like nothing can just be itself. There is no nature. It's just items that you need to be thinking about, all these different systems, all this different gameplay. And it is such a weird game to me. I don't know.
That's very true. And it's very funny the way you put it, because I'm just thinking about like how you're running around trying to spread like joy and beauty in the world, and then you get in a fight and the game's like, you get a B plus for how much you got damaged in this fight. Now go and use your 400 yen to buy like bags of seeds that you can feed to birds so you can get credit points, like reputation points that are in the corner. Oh god, yeah. I don't know. Now that you put it that way,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's also a thing in this game. I wouldn't say that like Kamiya is a sexist writer or anything, but I don't think that he has a particular interest in writing women. His female characters throughout his games, like there isn't very much interiority to them. They don't like seem to have any deep thoughts or have interesting conversations. They're kind of just in relation to the male character. And to be fair, the male characters don't really have a lot going on either. They're a lot more interested in
I was
just
about
like
to say
kind
that,
of
yeah.
being cool. Like, oh, Dante, he's a cool guy. Look at him. He's sad about his mom or whatever. And that's kind of his only thing. But I don't know. His female characters, in comparison, like, because his male characters are only interested in being cool from like a writing perspective, and his female characters don't have that aspect of trying to be cool. It feels like they feel really empty, whereas they're both kind of empty. They're not like any more empty compared to his male characters, but they feel a
Yeah.
lot less interesting.
Sure, yeah. I would argue that I think he has some awareness of this in how he portrays like how like belabored some of the female characters are. Like the goddess in Okami is like when she gets hit on, she's like, I shouldn't have to go through this bullshit just to help save the world. I think about the girlfriend in Viewtiful Joe, who's obviously in the right, but she gets kidnapped and turned into the damsel in distress. She becomes the reason for the plot existing in the first place. Yeah, but I would say they are just as empty as each other. I think this just has a problem with humor in that it's like if you put a guy and a girl in a room, like it's I guess Japanese comedic standard to be like, oh, it's funny if the guy hits on the girl. There's not really any jokes at the guy's expense that you could just do with the guy standing in the room. I don't know. That's just bullshit theorizing on my part. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's malicious though. It is definitely there.
Yeah, again, I don't think he's like sexist or anything, but there is like a distinct way that Kamiya treats gender, and
Yeah,
it is very noticeable to me. I don't think it's like a huge problem, but it is something that I do see it as a flaw, even if it's not like a moral flaw or anything. It's just like something that
sure.
he isn't good at doing.
I mean, even before we did this episode, I had my image of him was like a very fratty director, like very, very like bro dude kind of adjacent games or design.
Yeah, I do want to talk about him as a figure in the public space. I will say I'm ending it here. I want to just do Kamiya's Capcom era because after Okami, the game didn't do very well. It was stuck in production hell for a very long time. They spent so much time working on this game, so much money. Capcom really wanted to see it do well, and critically, it did fantastic. People loved this game. It was in a lot of people's Game of the Year list. It was a cult classic. People who played it seemed to love it a lot, even if I didn't. But sales wise, it did not do well. It did really badly. And they could not justify keeping this new studio Clover any longer because of how bad Okami did sales wise.
So that was
Despite
the only game they
being,
made. That was the only game
no,
Clover made.
I mean, Clover also did Viewtiful Joe. That's considered a Clover game, even if they weren't
Oh,
called
okay.
Clover. They also did God Hand. That was a Mikami game. I believe there was another one that I can't remember. Oh, they did Viewtiful Joe 2 as well, I'm pretty sure. But Okami was just such a big failure sales wise that they couldn't continue it. So they kind of broke that apart. Uh, and then Mikami and Kamiya were really disappointed by that. They didn't like that Capcom began to be a lot more focused on being kind of Western in a way. They really wanted to chase the trends like Call of Duty and stuff afterward. They straight up wanted to stop doing auteur focused works and they left, started working in a company called Platinum Games. That'll be what the next Kamiya episode will be about if we ever do that. I have no intention of doing that anytime soon. But yeah, that's kind of how he became a figure in the outside game community. He started off in Capcom, did a lot of these great games, and then sort of advertised himself in Platinum Games as doing these different games like Bayonetta and The Wonderful 101. And he is eventually coming back to Capcom years later. He's going to be working on Okami too, but that hasn't come out yet, and we'll see how that goes.
It'd be funny if Okami 2 came out and it was like, had the exact same problems as the first one. It was like he was still trying to rip off Zelda like really, really hard and making a second one.
Okay, but would it be ripping off Ocarina of Time Zelda or would it be ripping off Breath of the Wild Zelda?
It would be really funny if it was still ripping off Ocarina of Time Zelda and doing it poorly.
People really disagree with me on Okami, so I'm pretty sure the people are gonna be a little bit mad at those opinions. Anyway, I want to talk about Kamiya as a public figure because what I think is interesting, we're talking about these big directors. When we're talking about the smaller game creators, we're sort of like constructing a figure here. We're looking at the different works that they made. We're looking at their biographies, and because other people aren't talking about them very often, we're sort of making our own narrative about who these who these people are, what their games are, and how those interact with each other. What we are informed about from the work compared to who the person is. But for these big directors, other people are already doing that all the time. Gaming communities know who Hideki Kamiya is, and they're interested in who he is as a person. And the way that he is situated in public discourse is really interesting to me because I think I heard about him a lot during the sort of seventh generation when Japanese games in general they were focused on like appealing to broad Western games. They were interested in following the trends of like open world RPGs, doing things like first person shooters, really getting that Call of Duty audience. This is where Resident Evil 5 and 6 got really infamous, for example, for being really action oriented, being very shooty. And Kamiya was like, from my perspective, was often seen as like the complete antithesis to the mainstream seventh generation video game industry. For one, he was a lot less narrative oriented. A lot of games during that time wanted to be like cinematic and movie based, whereas his were like kind of content just having an excuse plot with big characters, and that was kind of it from a narrative perspective. They were very arcadey. They were difficult compared to a lot of games we're seen as being too easy, which is why Dark Souls became such a big deal because it was a hard game in comparison to all the easy Western games that were coming out. There was this divide between Japan and the West. people really didn't like Japanese games during this time, at least in the Anglosphere. They're like, oh man, those Japanese games are not as good as Western games. Blah, blah, blah. And for the people that really like Japanese games, Kamiya was like a big figure for them because they were so different from what was mainstream during that period. And he was so uninterested in sort of catering to those Western sensibilities in their eyes of catering to the mainstream. And this also meant that he was also kind of seen as like a figurehead for a lot of unsavory parts of the video game community who really wanted to hate on Western developers and not just their games. But I don't know. Did you interact with any of this, Galvin? Are you aware of any of this like discourse, I guess?
I am kind of semi-aware. Actually, I mean, I am confused about it, to be honest, because I really don't know where his political stance lies, if anywhere. To me, I mean, from what I understand, it seems like Kamiya is being treated the same way people are treating Kojima, where it's like both the far right and people who aren't in the far right are like trying to project their views onto him, and he's like
Yeah.
kind of all over the place. But what's interesting is that his vision is so bold, so it's like it seems like he's saying something very direct. In trying to research for this episode, which I abandoned very quickly because I was busy with other stuff, and I was like, "Yeah, Offer will handle it. Don't worry."
Yeah, this is my episode. Woo!
I literally just looked up Hideki Kamiya on YouTube, and I found let's just say a slew of grifter YouTube channels being like something that happened recently in the news, and people were like, Kamiya is slamming against sensitive Western gamers by saying he'll do whatever he wants. And then they linked to an interview, and from what I could tell, the interview was just like him saying in an interview being like, I think auteurs should focus on games that they want to make and the visions they want to make, and they should focus on integrating the cultures that they are in, which is not right wing. That's just that's just auteurist advice, I think. I think that's good general advice for all people to follow, and not a slam against Western progressive audiences. That's what I understand about the situation. Has he said any actual like right wing stuff? I don't even know where he lies politically, to be honest.
Like, yeah, he's known for like being an asshole to like fans and stuff. Like
Okay, but
online.
asshole is not the same as
Yeah,
it's not the
that's
same.
what I find really interesting in him. He's like known for being an asshole, but he's not known for being bigoted or like political in any way. He's just known for going online and being mad that people are asking him questions, for blocking people a lot of the time, saying like, "Oh, that's a stupid question," blocked. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it refreshing to see someone who is a jerk, but not for reasons that are horribly unethical.
If only we could bring back those types of jerks. Jerks used to be
Right?
different back then.
What
Uh,
happened to people being a jerk for being a jerk's sake? Why do they got to be racist now? What's going on
the
there? Come
term
on.
bully is so politicized nowadays. Why can't we bring back the apolitical bullies, you know? Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, even hearing about it through secondhand Twitter discourse, I could still see like plenty of examples where he was like slamming people who were trying to co-opt him for anti-woke purposes just as much as people who were just like saying, "Hey, what's going on, man?" and then immediately getting blocked. Um, God, there was one where he was like accused of trying to spread like a woke political agenda, and he's like, "I don't speak with people who are like, I don't speak with like one-celled organisms," or something like that was his response, or something like that. And people were like, "Yeah, get him, Kavya." And then he blocked those people too. No, that's just what he's like to me. That's what I can understand.
Thinking about him as a public figure is really interesting to me. I don't really know how that informs the way that people play his games. I think that people will like think of them as bolder by seeing who he is as a person online. But like they feel very accepting to me. I feel like these games want you to beat them. They want you to like keep on trying and getting a higher
Yes.
score. They want you to, I don't know, continue to improve, give you that feeling of getting knowledge. And he is a very accommodating arcadey style designer, which I think is interesting. Also, I should say that for all the people that he's worked with in person, say that he's like a really nice guy and that he's kind of only an asshole on the internet, which is how the internet used to be. But it is in the internet is now seen as like real life compared to a place where you're kind of play a persona, which is also interesting to me. I don't know. There's just a whole lot of things about him as a figure online that isn't completely related that I don't want to get into too much, but is I don't know, it's a
I
way
would
of changing.
personally, I mean, the way I think about it is I just don't think about connecting his online persona to his games at all. I mean, the
Right.
Twitter is explicitly a place designed to algorithmically piss people off. Like they have figured out the algorithm to piss people off. So if people are being annoying to you on the website where you're famous and everyone's constantly messaging you, then yeah, I would act like that too. I kind of understand. Um, yeah, I wouldn't say it's related to his games at all.
I mean, I don't think it's related to his games, and I don't think that you need to have it in mind. But it is something that interests me about how other people will play his games, keeping him as a figure in mind.
Yeah, I would say people who are it's only people who are I think are interested in the culture war or as you call it or video game culture. Like you have to have been in it in the first place to care about Kamiya's place in it. I think there are like a good amount of people who just think of Kamiya as the guy who directed Beautiful Joe and Wonderful 101 and they think of like the block thing or like the thing he does about blocking people on Twitter as just like a funny thing he does. Not really related to anything. And then there are people who are like, oh, he's like against the Western establishment, whatever you want to say about it.
I kind of agree with that, but the even more general kind of fandom stuff. Like fandom has grown a lot in the past few decades. I looked at like some of the fan communities for Bayonetta and for Devil May Cry, and the way that they talk about Kamiya is like, we never want this guy to touch this series again. We don't like this
Oh,
guy. And I found that fascinating. Like, wow, they
okay.
really have some strong opinions here. Is I don't know. I like these games. I think that him as a designer is great. I'm really curious about the way that other people are interacting with and interfacing with him as a figure, though. But we're doing our own thing. We're focused on the works itself more, doing some close readings. But yeah, that's something's going on in the culture. It's out there. Anyway, now we're going to do some recommendations. And this one's pretty clear for me based on the way I talk to them. I really like Resident Evil 2. I think that is a survival horror masterpiece. Loved it. I really like Devil May Cry, recommending that. I think that's a character action masterpiece. Love it. Recommend it. I also really like Viewtiful Joe. I think that's a beat 'em up masterpiece. One of the best beat 'em ups I've ever played. Recommend it. Done. Okami, hate that shit. Don't recommend. Not touching it. How about you?
I'm realizing now that mine is just a line that goes chronologically from top to bottom. Resident Evil 2 is my favorite. And then,
The decline of Kamiya.
yeah, I can't wait till we do the second episode. It's just going to be like a straight line down. I'm like, I hate all these games. This guy fucking
Wonderful 101 is
sucks.
the worst game I've ever played.
Exactly. No, I didn't even dislike Okami. It was just like I don't see myself playing 33 hours of this. It looks beautiful,
Yeah.
but like a lot of really annoying Zelda ticks get in the way. And it's like if I want to play a Zelda game, I haven't even finished Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. I might as well be doing that instead. Yeah, Resident Evil 2 is beautiful. I really need to finish it. Yeah. Then Devil May Cry, which I should probably finish, but again, if I lost all my skills in a week, then maybe I gotta just go back to it later on. Beautiful Joe, I'll get back to it in like a year, maybe when I know how to play video games, and then Okami, I'll get back to in
Once
like
you play
10
Dark
years.
Souls.
Yeah, of course. I mean, well, I guess that means we'll never get back to Beautiful Joe then. We're never getting back there. All right.
It's so funny to me the way that like Dark Souls has become a placeholder for difficulty and being good at video games. it's
Sure.
it's so weird.
My comparison goes a little bit beyond that. It's constantly introducing bosses who like have your health in one hit, stuff like that. That's pretty Dark Souls,
Okay.
right? Yeah, but that's all my recommend. I mean, hard to recommend, hard to unrecommend anything in a 4 game series, which is like the most popular games of this guy's career. Yeah, pretty good at making video games. Hot take.
Pretty good. All right, so what are we doing next, Galvin? Who are we covering next?
Well, normally we would be onto my suggestion since that was your suggestion, Kamiya, but you didn't hear this, listeners. Before we started recording, Offer pointed a gun at me. He said, I want to do the next episode. And I'm going to do this episode by any cost, and I'm going to take away your rights as a citizen and knee you in the crotch. And just like, he was basically horrible to me. And frankly, I don't know why I do this show anymore with this
Yeah,
tyrant ruling over us.
because I'll
But
shoot you.
I guess we gotta, might makes right. That's the lesson of the past decade, and that's what you got to do. So I'm turning it over to Offer for him to suggest, and maybe one day
Okay.
I'll be able to suggest something again. But yeah, we may not. This may become the Offer function show. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry to all my fans.
Okay. Should I give the actual background information for why
Yes,
I'm doing this?
go for it.
Okay. So we're doing some creative projects right now that we're just kind of wrapping up. So we wanted to take some time to do something smaller, something that isn't playing a bunch of long games. So we've chosen instead something very, very short. So we still have an episode coming out, but we're putting less time into doing all our research and stuff. So we're
Well,
talking about someone.
very short. It's a very big number. Okay,
Oh
Alfred, it's
yeah,
a
a
very
very
big number.
big number. We are covering the creator of 2048. You know 2048, the sliding block puzzle game, because this person I think has a really fascinating story, but it's very short. So I kind of put it on the back burner for whenever we kind of want to have a lower effort episode, but one that I think is very interesting and worth talking about because 2048's creator only made that one game, and he essentially made it on accident. Did it on a whim during a weekend, being like, "Oh, I'm just gonna make this game. I'm gonna use it to practice my programming skills," and it became a viral sensation and one of the most played games on the App Store. And I think it's an incredible story. I can't wait to talk about it. But
I
this is
mean,
Gabriel Truly. Look forward to that. I guess that one game.
Gabriel Gabriel truly one of the auteurs of our time. I mean, talk about like a Charles Locked in a video game. It was one and done, 100% hit rate. You know, to make the perfect game, hipped out. That's how I'm going to think of it. And that's how I'm going to try to present it.
Exactly. Hopefully this will be our shortest episode yet. I can't imagine having too much to say about it,
So
but
get ready for our 2 hour episode, our 2 hour episode on 2048. Yeah.
our 2 hour and 48-minute episode on 2048.
You got it. You figured it out. Oh my God. Now we have to do it.
All right.
And as always, game authors are important. You should remember their names. Thank you very much for listening.